It's on native swapping, and again, Dan from Nascent will be moderating for us here and keeping us all in check. Let's go ahead and get going.
All right, thank you. Okay, so I'm Dan, I'm from Nascent. We're early stage venture investors. We're also very active market participants on chain. And so we have a lot of experience doing swaps on single chains and across multiple chains. And I'm very excited for this panel today. I'm going to first go down and let each of the panelists briefly introduce themselves, and then we're going to start talking about what it means to do native cross-chain swapping. So Chad, why don't we start with you first?
My name is Chad. I'm one of the co-founders and technical lead for ThorChain. We've been building since 2019, so it's fair to say we're probably the father of cross-chain swaps. I would probably say it's probably accurate to say. Pretty proud of that. Glad to be here, and sorry for my voice. I've already lost it. It's already gone before the conference has barely even started.
My name is Shane. Hello, everyone. I'm the co-founder of Side Protocol. We're building an omni-chain and full-stack asset exchange and liquidity infrastructure for the modular future. So basically, we are working on a chain abstraction architecture to kind of connect to all the other layer 1 and layer 2s and be like their settlement layer for like asset exchange. So very glad to be here and share my 2 cents with all of you guys.
My name is Fig. I'm one of the co-founders of Squid, and we build developer tools for people to move assets across chains. Speak louder?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Okay, right, up close and personal. We make developer tools for people to build cross-chain flows between any ecosystem. Where currently we support the Cosmos and Ethereum, so you can do one click from ETH to Osmo on Osmosis, and then you can swap it to stars and buy an NFT on Stargaze just in one click. We've got an API, front-end developer tools, and yeah, we're expanding our chain set.
Fantastic. Okay, so maybe to start us off, Chad, can you help us understand what do we mean when we say native cross-chain swaps? How is that different from, I guess, non-native cross-chain swaps?
Yeah, so a native cross-chain swap will utilize native layer 1 assets to move value from one chain to the other. And what's more common before all this would be using wrapped assets, more common like WBTC, TBDC, so forth and so on, where you're trying to bridge one asset from one chain like Bitcoin to a secondary or target chain like Ethereum, and you're not actually transferring the value but the asset itself from one chain to the other. And cross-chain swaps or native cross-chain swaps is all about just transferring the value but not the assets.
All right, that's a great definition. So when we think about doing that, right, we've very well established, I would say, safe ways of doing swaps on a single chain, whether it's via an AMM or via an order book. What are some of the challenges that come with trying to do cross-chain, native cross-chain swaps? Vig, you want to tell us?
Yeah, I can go.
How you guys approaching this?
The way that Squid's approaching this is by trying to make it as modular as possible. And ThorChain have a really nice integrated solution for specific routes. So they do Bitcoin to Ethereum, for example. But we want to have our developer tools so that you can support any chain in the future. Say we have this modular future where thousands of rollups, lots of app chains in the Cosmos, all connected. So the approach we took is by creating this Lego block ecosystem across chains. You have Osmosis as a DEX and Cosmos that handles a lot of liquidity in that ecosystem, but we got Uniswap as well on Ethereum. And the native part for us is making sure that you're always swapping on a DEX into a bridged asset, then using a bridge to bridge, or a general message passing protocol to send assets across, and then swapping on a DEX on the other side. And you end up with a native token, even though you've gone across chain. And that was super important for us because Squid started maybe 2 years ago now, and that was around the time we had all these bridge hacks, had $2.5 billion, maybe $3 billion of hacked funds from people just holding bridged assets. And if we can minimize that, then I think that's a good thing.
I'll go next. So one of the technical challenges that we see with native token swapping is something like atomicity, which in the context of cross-chain native swapping means that a transaction either succeeds completely or fail completely, which is very essential to kind of prevent the loss of funds and during due to things like partial execution or failure. So when we build this native swapping within Cosmos ecosystem using IBC protocol, we just cancel the entire transaction and refund users if that transaction is is fully failed or it's a timeout. And another challenge that we see is that there are a lot of chains in the crypto space that do not support smart contracts. So on these blockchains, you don't have native DEXs, and you don't have these native DEXs that other aggregators can integrate. So in terms of these chains, we do see solutions like TSS-based architecture, threshold signature-based to enable native swapping between these blockchains. And also, sometimes if you don't need native swapping, you can also go for a non-native way. Like you can still move your assets to a DEX Appchain and then swap within that Appchain using voucher assets.
Yeah, one thing to throw on top of that is one of the challenges of cross-chain swaps is building consensus on top of consensus, which sounds a bit meta, and it kind of is. But it's a very complicated thing to achieve. How do you get a consensus about the state of some blockchain and another blockchain, and then get both of these entities to kind of agree on their states entirely, and then be able to do the business logic of a trade or a swap or a loan or whatever the DeFi platform that you're trying to throw on top of it. So building a consensus on top of consensus is very difficult. It took us years of research and development to accomplish it. And then on top of that, you think we worry about how does gas work on chain A, and how does gas work on chain B, and how do we account for that in the logic of the state chain between these two places? Another whole layer of complexity that took a while to kind of nail that one down.
So when we think about the challenges of operating across these chains, and you're trying to reach agreements on the state between two different chains, how much can be done in a pure cryptographic way versus how much of it needs to be done through, I would say, kind of economic security gains? What do you think the trade-off there is? Can you rely entirely on one or entirely on the other? Does it need to be a blend? How do you see this?
Yeah, I can start. The ultimate end game that we would like is where everything is cryptographic, right? You want it to be perfectly verifiable, but as Chad was saying, it's really louder. As Chad was saying, it's really hard to do that. Like, you guys spent years of research being able to combine a few ecosystems, and IBC is taking a while to come to Ethereum, to come to the Polkadot ecosystem, etc. So we've adopted the approach of just the best security app that you have at the time, and then we can upgrade that over time as better implementations come in of the cryptography. I think it's especially in the swapping use case, it's actually not as important as with just bridging, because our users do end up with native tokens at the end of the day. So the only time you're at risk of a bridge hack is while the transaction's happening. And we've used intent architectures to reduce that time down to less than 20 seconds in a lot of cases. So the chance that a bridge is going to get hacked in 20 seconds is pretty low. And it's more at the asset collateralization layer where really strong cryptographic guarantees are important. And we have, roll-ups are essentially a bridge. And they're a great example of good collateralization, but not good for applications like cross-chain swaps.
So I guess what you're saying is that, as a trader, the period that you care about, for security, isn't super long, and so you can ideally would like everything to be cryptographic, but economic security is fine in terms of the guarantees for the limited period of time. Our other panelists, would you agree with that? Do you think that the ultimate end state we're looking for with these kind of native cross-chain swaps, can it ultimately be done in a purely cryptographic way, and we're kind of kludging together best-in-class security for the time, but ultimately we're trending in that direction?
Yeah. In my opinion, I would say the answer is no. It depends on the situation. So you can do cross-chain in 3 different ways. One would be a trusted methodology, which is what a bridge generally is. The second one would be economic, which is what Thorchain's design is. And Thorchain's been around for a lot of years, and there's been cryptographic improvements in those years that weren't available to us, back in 2019, that are now available today, which is really great to see that progression. But one of the reasons why cryptographic is not really viable, at least not in our case, is because we want to make sure that we can support any chain in the world, not just the EVMs of the world, but the UTXOs and the crypto note like Moneros of the world and the polka dots and everything in between. And because of the restrictions of a UTXO chain, like Bitcoin, for example, cryptographic is not really viable because you need threshold signatures, you need somebody to maintain those wallets, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't really work out so well. That doesn't mean it can be improved in the future, and I hope that it will. But for the time being, the only viable methodology that I see is economic.
All right, and Shane, would you agree with that?
I think when it comes to security assumptions, different native swapping are using different bridges, and these bridges also have different level of their own security assumptions. Like some are TSS based, or like some are like Likeline based. So for these native swapping dexes, if they want to integrate with only one protocol, like cross-messaging protocol, they won't be able to gain like exposure to all the ecosystems. But if they integrate with multiple different like cross-chain messaging protocols, it can like make things a little bit more complicated because these protocols are not compatible, and the tokens that are bridged using these protocols are also not compatible. So yeah.
Okay, so we've talked a little bit about some of the security assumptions here. Let's talk about the user experience. What are the right, other ecosystem players or applications who should be thinking most strongly about integrating native cross-chain swaps? Who are the key players on that front?
The audience for cross-chain swaps, the people who should be integrating into their apps?
Yeah, who are the people who should be integrating cross-chain swaps in their app, right? I would say for a lending protocol, right? It's not just about swapping, right? You're holding the collateral there. It's maybe a little more tricky. But who should be integrated? Is it wallets? Is it dexes? Is it aggregators? Is it...
Exactly, yeah. So we take the approach that cross-chain swaps are really just what is needed to keep money programmable. We had Ethereum and one ecosystem we were able to move tokens between chains, and the beauty of it was that you could program logic when you transferred value. And a bridge is really a cross-chain swap. USDC on Arbitrum is not the same as USDC on Optimism. Even if you think it's a bridge, it's actually swap. And we've extended that to every token on any chain. And then once you have that, you can start building true modular systems where you have lending protocol over here, you have NFT marketplace over here, and any user on any chain can access it. So I think every application that has users facing it should have cross-chain swaps integrated, because otherwise you're limiting your total addressable market to the chain that you're on at the time, or maybe the token that you support in your contracts. Even if you're on Ethereum and the user and the token, the NFT is being sold in USDC, the user wants to swap their ETH into USDC to buy the NFT. It's just about keeping this modularity of everything. Interoperability isn't just between chains; it's between users and applications, or users and users. So yeah, I think most people should be thinking about this probably.
And Chad, I know that Thorchain has been very early in this space and has done a lot of integrations. Who would you consider the most important partners that you guys have integrated with to date?
Yeah, I think we've been spending a lot of biz dev on primarily wallets. So we're in conversation with pretty much every major wallet that you can think of at the top of your head. We're probably already talking to them. Most of them have already expressed interest in doing the integration. That takes a long time. Biz dev is a very kind of time-consuming thing. But wallets is one thing. We want to make sure that Thorchain's building pillars of infrastructure that wallets and other kind of use cases can use to seamlessly move from chain A to chain B, or even chain C in a very smooth way. Dex is another important thing you kind of talked about. I think those two are probably the most like critically important. We've started to see on Thorchain's world that sexes are also starting to integrate with Thorchain to provide liquidity for centralized exchanges as well. So we can see a lot of movement happening in a lot of different ways. Now that this industry has been developed over the last 4 or 5 years, we're starting to see a lot of maturity, both in Thorchain, but also with Squid and other guys on the team here, plus Chainflip and Maya and like other ones that are also in the space. It's love it to see more maturity come to this industry.
So I actually want to circle back on something that you mentioned, Vig, was USDC on Optimism and USDC on Arbitrum, not totally the same asset. I think one of the biggest developments over the last, year or so in the cross-chain space has been CCTP, right? And Circle enabling more native examples of USDC. What role do you see CCTP playing in some of this cross-chain swaps? Like, does USDC become a kind of default bridge asset? Does that make things easier, harder from the approach that you guys are taking? Like, where does that fit in? Because it seems like we're already, as an ecosystem, have imbued so much trust in this product. How reasonable is it for us to lean in more to that versus try to avoid it as much as possible?
Yeah, we've integrated CCTP, especially from Cosmos to Ethereum, for our integration with DYDX, because DYDX had a roll-up and they needed to move all their collateral, or the users needed to move it over to Cosmos. But you're totally right. The canonical chain for everything, all value is now Circles, like data center in San Francisco, whatever they do. So it's concerning for sure. It's not in the true decentralized vision that we all have, but at the same time it's great for users. Like, people want to transact using the US dollar and hold value in the US dollar, and Circle's doing a great job of making a secure asset. For swaps, it's slightly more efficient. Like, we have to swap into a bridged version of USDC, and that costs around 1 basis point usually on one side and then 1 basis point on the other side. So you're always paying 2 basis points to liquidity providers, and now you don't have to pay anything. So it's slightly better. I think in the long run, though, we still end up with decentralized bridges and messaging protocols doing a lot of the work. Circle's got its thing where it has its way of transferring value around in a really efficient way, but they still rely on protocols like Axelar and Wormhole and other messaging protocols to combine application logic across chains. So, I think it's not as much of a big deal as people say. It's great to have canonical USDC everywhere, but roll-up bridged USDC was already pretty good. So it's not too different in my opinion.
How about you guys? Anybody different take on CCTP and USDC and its role in bridging?
I've already spoken. You go ahead.
So, personally, one of the issues that I encounter a lot is that when I use an Appchain, for the same token, let's say USDC, that are bridged from different other chains. Like on Osmosis, you might have one stablecoin that are bridged from Ethereum, or one from maybe through Gravity bridge from other chains, or like USDC from Nobles, and there are different standards, and those tokens are not really compatible, and that's really that can create some issues around fragmentation of liquidity. So yeah, I just want to highlight that. I think the native cross-chain USDC can has the potential to kind of make an end solution maybe for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest problems in DeFi we haven't even solved yet is stablecoins in general. The market cap of stablecoins is about $100 million, something like that. And 99% of that is some centralized, either USDC. DAI is also a USDC derivative in some sense, so it's really not that decentralized much at all. And that's one about five there. So 100 billion, I should say, not 100 million. So if all of our DeFi, especially cross-chain stuff, is being reliant on USDC or one of these centralized things, that's fundamentally a problem in the industry. If we have to allow a company, a single entity that is a US based, to approve the usage of our DeFi platforms, holy shit, are we in fucking trouble, right? So we have not actually solved one of the most important issues of a properly decentralized, properly capital efficient, and properly scalable stablecoin does not exist in this market today. And that's shocking. UST was the most successful one until the whole thing obviously collapsed down to zero. I think that was about like 20 billion or 30 billion when it crashed. So while USDC is very helpful for DeFi today, and we should continue to use it while we have it as an option, somebody, please, for the love of fucking God, please build a decentralized stablecoin that will not be shut off by some corporate entity within the US jurisdiction. I pray somebody can accomplish this. We got
All
Bitcoin
right.
already.
Adding stablecoin.
Okay. And I think this timer actually got started a little later for us. We're supposed to be wrapping up. Final question, though, for everybody. Maybe we already addressed this earlier in terms of like economic versus cryptographic security, but what do you see as being like the next frontier on native cross-chain swaps? What is the next thing that's going to like make a big leap forward either in cost and efficiency and speed and security? What are you looking forward to over the next, I don't know, 1 to 2 years maybe? Shane, you want to start us off with this one this time? I feel like we're always making you go last.
All right. I think when it comes to the future of native token swapping, I think it's very clear now the future will be multi-chain, and we're seeing an increasing number of blockchains and rollups, especially with the new narrative modularity. Launching a new chain will be as easy as launching a new token. And in such a future, I think native swapping DEX should be able to integrate new chains just as easily as it is today to import a new token on Uniswap. So to achieve that future, I think a better interoperability will be needed and more research will be required for that.
Sure. I've got to mention intents. That's the next step.
Intents,
surely.
yes. Okay.
Yeah. So we already use intents in a way with Squid where we speed up the transaction, because going from a roll-up to a roll-up, it would take 20 minutes because the finality on Arbitrum or Optimism takes Ethereum finality of 16 minutes plus about a 4-minute batch of transactions, which gets posted every 4 or 5 minutes. So for a user, waiting for your funds to come across is terrible experience. It's really scary. And what we've done is we have an intent-like system where you declare your bridge intent on the source chain, and the bridge starts its 20-minute process. But then someone, a solver on the destination chain, can provide your bridged funds immediately and execute exactly what you wanted to execute, because you've declared the payload that you want executed on the destination chain already. And so what it looks like is the user just gets what they want done almost instantly, and the solver then, they've essentially given a loan to the user, and the loan is paid back by the bridge 20 minutes later. That's one intent architecture, which is going to be great for cross-chain generally. It also gives this kind of illusion of atomicity as well. It's essentially just pushing all of the atomicity into wherever the intent layer is being settled or being expressed. But then the second part of that is being able to access off-chain liquidity, because currently we only access liquidity on dexes like Osmosis and Uniswap, like I said, Curve. But with intents, you can have essentially a market maker provide, fill the swap. Say I have ETH and I want to swap to USDC on another chain. They can provide USDC at their price immediately, take a hedge on Binance, and you're effectively getting a similar liquidity to what Binance has. You don't have to rely on having liquidity on every 1,000 rollups that there are. So I think that's for sure going to be a big part of all of our lives pretty soon.
Yeah, I think from my view, this bull market will be the first bull market in history where you can have better price execution than a centralized exchange, right? And that's a monumental moment. Like, that's very significant, because being decentralized is not enough. You can't just be decentralized and say, oh, everybody's going to use this because we're more decentralized than Coinbase. That's just not enough. We need to have a better price execution than Coinbase or Binance or Kraken. Love those, I'm not shitting on them, great platforms. But we need to be better than what they can do. And today, ThorChain does about 1 to 5% of the spot volume of Bitcoin, which is incredible considering where we were just 2 years ago, right? And so now that we've actually exceeded better price execution than everything else in the market, and I mean that in a literal sense, the next part is, can we do the volume that Binance does of $10 billion or $30 billion in volume? And we can't do that right today. So what we need most right now is just better capital efficiency. We need more arbitrage. We need more liquid pools. And we're all be working on that simultaneously on this stage and off the stage as well. But once we achieve that, spot trading will be predominantly a DEX own thing, which is obviously the goal that we all want to do and achieve in this industry.
That's a fantastic note to end on. Thank you all. Let's give our panelists a big round of applause. Thank you, guys.